Hi, welcome to the Recovery Daily podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abassi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor, and Autumn is trying to get comfortable. Yes, I am sporting my 80s hairdo, and I'm sure that I'm bringing it back in style. It's going to go viral today. Today I want to talk about learning to say no. And this is a different kind of learning to say no than I used to try to figure out. And I'll explain what that means. So, whether it is protecting, Autumn's still trying to get comfortable. There she goes. Okay. Whether it's protecting our sobriety or our health, sometimes the hardest part after we have done the mental preparation to say no to someone, is dealing with our feelings about it later when we're all alone while others are out enjoying the thing that we had to say no to because it was going to be bad for our health, right? So I'm talking about when you first get sober and you feel that it is necessary to opt out of a certain activity because the focus would be on drinking, and you just plain old wouldn't have fun with all that drinking around. And I had to do that for a long time when I first got sober. I still do it a lot. I don't do the same things that I used to do now that I'm sober. But what I've encountered now in this phase of my recovery with this vestibular disorder is I have to say no because it might trigger my symptoms. And there's a lot of stuff I have to say no to now. And so let's explore how to navigate these waters without sinking into self-pity, and how gratitude can save us. It can be our life raft. So here's the thing. We could go. If somebody invites us to do something, we can go. We can physically show up, but we choose not to. And it's because we're prioritizing our health, our recovery. It's not like I can't go because my mom said no. It is, I'm choosing not to go because I'm taking care of me and I love myself and I want to feel good. I want to not be miserable. And after all, like if we think back to when we were younger and our mom said no, why was she saying no? It was usually because she loves us and she wanted what's best for us. She knew when something wasn't good for us, even if we wanted so badly to go. Even if sometimes we felt like she was just saying no to simply make us suffer. But that's the thing, is that when we're younger, we're relying on mom or dad to tell us to draw those lines for us because we're not old enough, mature enough to know how to take care of ourselves yet. Our parents are teaching us how to love ourselves, teaching us how to have limitations, to draw lines around what is good for us and what is bad for us. So there's this struggle of saying no. That's the first struggle. And I'm not talking about that struggle of saying no that we deal with when we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. And we don't want, because we don't want to do what they're inviting us to do. This is different. That's an entirely different internal battle that I talk to people about a lot. It's hard to say no to someone just because you don't want to do something. It's hard to say, you feel like you got to come up with an excuse and all of that stuff. This is different. What I'm talking about is the struggle of saying no when we want to participate, but we know that it's not good for our condition. In my vestibular support group yesterday, we tackled this topic, the guilt and what I called self-pity that comes with having to cancel plans in order to protect our health. The group started the conversation by talking about how do you deal with the guilt of telling people I can't do that, of canceling plans. And so I listened for a while to what they were saying. And then I thought, what resonates with me is not guilt. I don't feel guilty for prioritizing my health and telling somebody I can't do it. But what I do feel is sorry for myself. I feel like I can't go. Like when mom said I couldn't go, and I call my friend and go, Mom said I can't go. It's the same feeling, but I'm saying I can't go. And when I reflect on my early sobriety days, when I had to turn down all of those happy hours and gatherings that were centered around drinking, I was really sad. I was jealous of the people that could do it. And I felt sorry for myself that I couldn't do it. Um, so just like then, I'm finding myself having to say no to things that I love, like social outings again, because my health requires me to say no. And as the summer closes in, I predict that this is going to happen more and more. So I need to prepare myself mentally for saying no and emotionally for dealing with the aftermath of saying no. I need to prepare to counteract these internal responses of feeling sorry for myself. And I talked to my psychiatrist about it today in my appointment, and she said, is it self-pity or are you still grieving? And I said, that's an interesting concept because grieving to me is a process that has an end. I will get through it and get to the other side of grieving. Self-pity, feeling sorry for myself. This is, to me, a like you've fallen into a pit and you can't get out. There's no end to it. I've dropped into a chasm and I need help getting out of it. And that's really what I was feeling. That's what I'm feeling. But I think there is a part of grieving. If this feeling sorry for myself is actually a part of the grieving process, then that makes a lot of sense. But regardless, she's, what do you call that? You're picking fine hairs with I don't know what that's called. Anyway, you're analyzing words. It's almost like an unnecessary analyzing situation there where we're just defining words. It's really about what do I do about it? How can I counteract it? So I took some notes in my meeting with her, and I actually have them right beside me, but who wants me to pull my notes out for the episode? Anyway, so yes, while I don't feel guilty about prioritizing my well-being and saying no, I do feel a sense of loss. and that is grieving. Um, the sorrow, the sadness of missing out on life's pleasures that I used to enjoy because they might set me back in recovery. I feel like that is something that is forward looking while grieving is looking backward. I don't know. Again, I'm defining words and I don't know that it's doing me any good. But probably the biggest battle that I've been struggling with right now is my inability to see my mom. My mom's about an hour away, and I used to live my whole life, I lived down the street from her, aside from when I lived with her when I was growing up. So just recently, we moved to be closer to work, and then COVID happened, and we never actually had to drive into the office. So then I had my stroke a year after COVID started. So I am now out here, no need to go to work, and I can't see my mom. And I've been working with my mom and my sister and my niece, in fact, to try to figure out a time that I can catch a ride out to my mom's and stay with her for a couple nights. Um, I almost did this for Mother's Day, but it just didn't work out for various reasons, and I couldn't go. But here's the thing. I wanted to go so badly that I had been ignoring that my health had been declining over the past week after vestibular therapy introduced some new exercises to me. Sorry, Autumn is still trying to get comfortable. There she is, right there. Hi. Such a little princess. Your debut, Autumn. It's your debut. She's looking at the lights. She's like, I know, I'm beautiful. I know. Okay. So I have been slowly declining over the past 2 weeks, and it's because of this vestibular therapy, new activities that have been introduced, and because I have been also trying to introduce other things on the side. So all of this has become too much, and when it gets to be too much, my symptoms start declining again. So I have felt pretty terrible for the past, especially for the past week, but I felt it coming on last week. And if I had actually gone to see my mom, I would feel even worse. I would probably be I would have had to cancel my doctor's appointments, I'm guessing. So what I've learned is that I haven't actually progressed in such a way that I can do that many things. I'm sure I have progressed in some way, but when I get frustrated like this and my symptoms get worse, I end up talking to my psychiatrist today and saying, nothing's changed. In 3 years, I feel exactly the same. Well, it does feel that way. I feel just as bad today as I did when I first had my stroke. But I am learning to manage my symptoms so that sometimes I feel okay. And if I can continue to try to work at that, I can feel okay more often. So, what I understand, excuse me, what I'm understanding now, sorry, Autumn, stop it, quiet. Um, what I'm understanding now is that I still can't go to see my mom. I still can't ride out there as much as I want to. Sorry, as much as I want to, it's just not good for me. And it hurts to admit that. And it leads to feeling sorry for myself, that I can't be with my mom. I had a phone call with my mom last week or this weekend, I can't remember. And we talked for like 2 hours on the phone, and that was awesome. And how about instead of me sitting around feeling sorry for myself, that Autumn, here, that I call my mom, you know? So there are ways to counteract feeling sorry for myself. And this is what I want to focus on and I want to talk about. And I'm sorry for the distraction of my dog, but just pretend like you're right here in the room with me. Um, so how do I counteract it? Gratitude. I mean, that's what it keeps coming back to is gratitude. And I have to shift from feeling sorry for myself into gratitude in order to save myself from um, depression. And I've been here before. I've been here in early sobriety. And the answer, although it is not easy, is practicing gratitude more frequently. So in early sobriety, when I stopped attending alcohol-centered events, I got to start appreciating what I gained in sobriety instead of what I lost. Being sober meant that I could be present for my kids. I could be more present at work and actually start excelling and getting promoted and making more money. I mean, that happened because I got sober. And I was able to actually like really engage in life and with people and build relationships, like real relationships. I had joy based on values and success rather than fun based on escaping reality, like I talked about yesterday. Applying this to my current challenges, I realize that while I may not be able to engage in all the activities I once loved, I have discovered new passions. And I talked to my psychiatrist about this. I can't pretend to say, oh, I don't get to go kayaking, but yay me. I get to sew. I'm getting good at sewing. Like it doesn't, sewing has opened up a new way to be creative, to express myself, it's very meditative actually, because there's nothing else I can really think about while I'm sewing something that requires me to pay attention. So it doesn't replace kayaking, but it does bring its own joy and satisfaction. Um, Today, my psychiatrist talked about being, so let's see if I don't destroy how she said this to me. She was like, it's not the activity itself that we're grateful for. It's what we gain internally from the activity. So that really spoke to me when she said that, because what what is interesting and will be interesting to further look at and think about is what joy, what internal satisfaction do I get from kayaking? And what is something that I can do now that does not bother my head, where I can gain equivalent satisfaction? I don't know. I'm going to have to think about it, but I gave myself some homework when I was talking to her that I'm going to make a list of these things that I am feeling sorry for myself that I can't do. For example, call my mom or go kayaking, going running. That's one that's making me feel sorry for myself lately. And so make a list of these things. Talk about, beside that, right? What was I gaining from that? What did it give me internally to do those activities? And then find alternative activities that don't replace the activity. I'll never be able to replace running, right? Because running, I have memories of running. Running gave me so much release, and I got to see nature and I got to travel through nature and these things. Like running is its own activity and gave me a certain level of joy that I may not necessarily ever be able to replace in itself with one activity. However, there are activities that maybe if I do several of them, from each I will gain a piece of what running was giving me. Practicing gratitude after I make, this list and practice gratitude, I am not denying my feelings of loss. I'm not ignoring the fact that I miss running. But I need to be able to balance that feeling of loss with awareness of what I still have and what I can still do. It brings me back to what I mentioned several weeks ago, where my psychiatrist said these two feelings can coexist. The feeling of loss can coexist with gratitude for new things I appreciate in life. It's like acknowledging, it's like what they always say, when one door closes, another one opens. And sometimes that new path can be just as fulfilling, or it can be more fulfilling. Well, sometimes it takes a while for any doors to open. And that is where I feel like I have been sitting, like I'm stuck in this dark hallway with a million doors, almost like a Stephen King movie, with a million doors and they are all shut and locked. But as I continue to do my podcast, go to my psychiatrist, go to vestibular support groups, stroke support groups, AA, going to see these doctors, the lights are slowly starting to come on in this hallway. And I'm starting to try a few doorknobs. And if they turn, I get to peek inside and see if I like what's in there. And I am starting to notice that these are the choices I get to make today. I was talking to my psychiatrist about how I have new choices. I'm not left with no choices. I just have new choices now. I was talking to her about not knowing what my future holds. And she said the same thing. Drives me crazy when people say this to me. None of us know what the future holds. Yeah, I get that. But but we typically know what capabilities we have physically. Um, I mean, that's just normal. That's typical that we know whether I mean, yeah, I can have my own argument with myself. Like, sure, there's no guarantee I'm going to be able to walk tomorrow. I get that. But the odds are that I'm going to walk tomorrow. And right now, I don't know either way. Like, am I ever going to be able to drive again? That kind of thing. So I went to the otolaryngologist today, the ear, nose, and throat gal, and talked to her about a little bit of this. I said, I don't know what it is I'm waiting for. Um, because it's like I'm waiting for somebody to tell me what's going to happen, you know? And she said, well, what you're waiting for is to feel better. And I said, yeah, but what I didn't say to her is I have very little speculation that I'm going to start feeling better all of a sudden. I just don't see it happening. Sorry, I have to take a drinking pause. Okay. So she said, what we'll know after I go to this new neurologist, and she's going to work with me on migraine medication, we'll start revealing whether the majority of my symptoms are migraine related or triple PD related. I feel after all this time that I can just tell you that it's triple PD related. Now that the migraine pain has been subsided by Emgality and I don't have the sharp pains, now that shaken head, the grizzly head feeling is more prominent. And I think the migraine was a red flag, like protecting me from this shaken head feeling. And now I don't have that. So now I feel more shaken head feeling because I don't stop myself because I don't have that pain. That's a red flag for me. So, anyway, I did not say to her, yeah, I'm not going to get better because I can't have that attitude, but it's difficult at this point to not be like, so what I asked her was, so what if I don't? Like we have 6 months. She said, let's go 6 months. If we're not making any progress and you don't feel any better, then that is the place where she said you can practice acceptance at any time, but when we know what we're dealing with after about 6 months, we'll have a better idea about like what I'm talking about, like what level, where is what am I accepting? Am I accepting that things are going to be this way forever, or am I accepting the way it is temporarily? I hope you understand what I'm trying to say about like what am I accepting? So anyway, 6 months. She said like 3 or 4 months of vestibular therapy, which I've done about, I don't know, I'd have to look back, but I've done a couple months of that already. And so the neurologist, she wants me to see the neurologist and see what kind of pain management she's going to be able to do for me. And then she's going to have a better idea. So I have my ENG test in July, and she really doesn't want me to take that test because she thinks it's gonna be really terrible for me. I don't really care to take it if it's not going to tell us anything, if it's just going to say, yeah, what you feel is what you feel. I don't need that. But so that's the plan with that. Okay, so back to gratitude. Practice makes progress. uh it takes it takes that kind of practice to train our minds to recognize and celebrate what's good amidst all the things that are bad. This shift takes a while. I was talking to my mom about it because my mom was, if you're listening to this episode, Mom, hi, by the way, I love you. Um, my mom and I were talking about gratitude and doing gratitude lists every day, like naming 3 things we're grateful for every day. And I was talking to her about it took me 3 years to actually get in the habit of saying my gratefuls every day. It took 3 years. And I've lost that habit. I have recently not been consistent saying my gratefuls every day. Believe it or not, I have not. I have not after all this time. It started to, I think it's because I typically record my podcast right before bed. And that's when I was typically doing my gratitude was right before bed. So, anywho, I'm trying to get back into it. And by that, I mean actually sending them to my gratitude buddies. So, practicing that. Anyway, it requires a lot of patience. It requires persistence, and sometimes it requires professional help and a bit of trust to learn how to think positively when all signs are pointing towards the negative. Um, and just like my sobriety has prepared me for my stroke recovery, I'm hoping, I trust that this kind of this experience that I'm going through now and practicing gratitude throughout it is going to prepare me for whatever lies ahead. That's what I have to believe. I have to believe that this is for something. When I got sober, I believed that getting sober was for me to live, obviously, for me to be able to be a better mom, these kinds of things. I did not have any idea, obviously, that this sobriety was preparing me for stroke recovery, but it very much has. Um, I practice these principles in all of my affairs, and that includes stroke recovery. So we might think of it as developing a muscle. The more we exercise gratitude, the stronger our ability to cope becomes. And as someone who has worked my way from the grips of alcoholism, I can vouch that the practice pays off if you are consistent with it. My sobriety was just practice for me for this phase of my recovery. And if I could shift my mindset then, I can most certainly do it now. So think about where you can start practicing gratitude. If you're already practicing gratitude, look at it a little bit deeper and see, am I doing the best with my gratitude, or can I dig a little deeper? Am I listing surface stuff? I'm grateful for the flowers, the birds, and the bees, or am I really looking at today? I'm grateful that I was able to work out my health insurance and everything so that I can still get the care that I require for my stroke recovery. That's something that takes a little more time and thought. It requires you to be thoughtful in the gratitude. So, what are the hidden gifts in your life, and how can acknowledging them help shift your focus from maybe what you've lost to what you've gained? So, if you have found this episode helpful, consider sharing it with someone who might be struggling with similar issues. Share it with someone who maybe you don't think is suffering, because we're all recovering from something. And these episodes, although I focus a lot on stroke recovery and sobriety and mental health, there's a lot in it for just living day to day. So thanks for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.